Hello, can you hear me?
I can. How are you
How are
doing?
you?
Good.
I'm well.
Yeah.
Welcome to my live. I mean, oh, this is your live. So, all the wording is right there in front of my face. Is that how it should be?
Yes. So you'll see people come on and you'll see their names pop up, but no one can actually speak um, unless they're up here with us.
Okay. Do I look presentable?
You do.
With just glasses.
We're pretty chill and laid back here. Hi, Amir. How are you? Thanks for joining. We're waiting for Wayne Lassane and Dr. Lo Whiteman to jump on. Let me let them know. Okay. So we usually well, we don't start until 7, and then we give it about 7:05 for people to jump on. Dr. Whiteman is on his way. Excuse me. Yes, so earlier we did a live on to reflect on 9/11, the events of 9/11. It was a really powerful live. We had guests on, so oftentimes we think about 9/11 as the attacks. Oh, hold on for a second. Man, I'm up here talking to
Well,
myself, and you're
look,
not on here. I'm like wasting that energy.
I heard you, but you couldn't see me, and I kept saying that I was dropped, and so I
Oh,
was.
oh my goodness. I'm up here talking and like,
But you were heard. You just didn't know it. I heard you.
what'd I say?
You was talking about the live that you had
Oh,
earlier.
okay.
Remember? You can't trick me. You can't trick me.
No, but I was saying it was a powerful event. I was saying that most of the times we think of 9/11 as the attacks where a lot of folks died during that event, but we don't often know that or think about the backlash that people are still
Right.
having post 9/11.
Right.
People have caught cancer and are still passing from cancer, and we had a few guests on talking about their personal battle with cancer and loss of loved ones. So it was really powerful. So you have to look at that video when you have an
Yes.
opportunity.
Um, I got to figure out how to. I guess I got to figure out how to get to
Oh,
it.
you're on my. You'll see it. Like
Okay.
if you go to my page, you'll see it. It's the most recent one. It just happened today.
Okay.
I had like a black and red shirt or a
Okay.
maroon shirt. Yeah. So you'll see it.
So those books should be in this. I'm going out of town on Saturday, so hopefully they'll come before then, and I'll mail them out to you
Okay.
with the signature.
Oh,
And also, not only will they have signatures, they have a comment in it, like you said. And I'm going to do one thing special. I'm going to put a bookmark in there as well.
okay. Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Hello, hello,
Hey,
hello. How are you?
Shan, how you doing, Shan?
Do you know Shan?
I do. She's cool.
Excellent. Hi, Shan. Thanks for joining. Let me find out you're the star of the show.
No. Just because you put my name at the top, don't make that means no. I'm just a look. I'm just a visitor. So,
Uh-huh.
and I look forward because I sent you a copy of that interview that I did on and there was a picture of me standing right in front of this big pavilion. But anyway, they asked some really really tough questions. Hello,
Okay.
can't hear them.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
I'm well, sir. It's a pleasure to meet you.
As well. I liked your background. I took some time to absorb a little bit about what you do. Very intriguing. Especially being a kid. Nice to know you still have a kid inside of you.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but I mean, you
Well,
when you say kid, right? I'm glad you said that because look, I've been working on kids.
But wait a minute. No, we can't. Don't talk about that yet. We gotta wait till you guys
yeah,
can't start.
just trying to make him feel comfortable. Just time out.
Time out. Okay.
Right.
I know.
Well, it's 7:00. We can get started because you guys then jumped on in and got the show started. Well, Wayne Lassane won't be here today. It's his wife's birthday, so they are out
Okay.
engaging in self-care and celebrating. So
Hey,
we'll
gang. Okay.
get started. Lo, you want to start now or give it a few minutes for people to jump on?
Well, we got a couple minutes.
Okay.
Usually people get around between 5 and 5:05 or 7 and 7:05 your time.
Mm-hmm.
5 o'clock. I'm in Denver.
You said Denver?
Yeah, I'm in Denver.
So a story. I went to Denver for an event a couple weeks ago, and Lo and I have been friends for so long now, and we had never met in person.
Wow.
So I went to Denver, and we had an opportunity to spend time together. It was so amazing.
Wow, that's good.
And I will say I've been sick since I got back from Denver because of the I think the altitude. Oh my gosh. Let me tell you, I have had so many COVID tests over the past week or so. Like, what is wrong with me? Do I have COVID? The tests keep coming back negative. But it was because the doctor was like, oh, you were in Denver. You were in high altitude. It messes with your lungs and your breathing. Because I've been congested, like, really, really bad.
Yeah, it will do that to you. It really will.
Well, when you live fast and hard like Dr. Rogers, things tend to happen to you. You just get so excited about life, overwhelmed yourself.
Well, you have to be excited about life.
Excuse me, sir. Is there a way you could turn your volume up slightly, or is it just me having a difficult time hearing you? It doesn't sound as loud as hers.
My mic is a directional mic, so I have to get really close. Is that better?
Okay. Yes, it is. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I sounded low. I thought it was just me.
No.
And I can push
there
up.
You go.
That gets even better. Yeah, there you go.
That's much better. Thank you. See, I'm already working with you, doctor.
There you go. Whenever you're ready, Leslie, to open up and start, we can get going.
Mm-hmm.
Can she hear right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me?
I can hear.
Whenever you want to get started.
So we'll get started, and people can jump on and can look at the video. So hey guys, my name is Dr. Leslie Rogers, owner of Mental Health Talk, and where our goal is to promote dialogue around mental health and overall well-being. I'm also the chief editor of Mental Health Talk magazine, the publisher and chief editor of the Mental Health Talk magazine. We have a lot of discussions in the magazine around mental health, real life discussions that are relatable. With me, you have Dr. Lowell Whiteman. He's a performance athletic performance. What are you?
Coach. Mental performance coach.
My mind just slipped. He is a elite performance coach, guys. Elite performance coach. He works with a lot of athletes, and he does an amazing job with that. And also, you'll notice we have a guest with us today, Mr. Anthony Owens. Anthony Owens is the author of Syrup Sandwiches. Woo! Woo! Syrup sandwiches. And we're going to talk about this book in a little bit. And this book is actually going to be in the Mental Health Talk bookstore. It's a new edition, so you guys will see this amongst the other amazing books in the bookstore. But you guys will see this as Mental Health Talk Live in the bookstore. So let me tell you a little bit about Anthony Owens. He's a native of Dawson, Georgia, but grew up in Brooklyn, New York. He considers himself a Brooklynite, growing up there from 1965 to 1981. He proudly served 20 years of active duty service in the U.S. Navy, fighting 2 wars and providing humanitarian aid to foreign countries. With an MBA from St. Leo University, he is now a federal information technology specialist in Virginia. Good for you. How long did you serve in the military? Oh, 20 years. 20 years.
Yeah, I did 20 years.
20 years. Yep. 20 years in the military. Thank you for joining Mental Health Talk and coming to share your amazing story. You and I have had an opportunity to talk a little bit offline, and I think that you have a powerful story to tell. Is that what your book about? Is your book about your life, or?
It's about my life. It's about growing up without a lot of the necessities that most people should have, right? You know, just like food and things that we should have to survive and feel comfortable and you know, be in a happy place. And so it was absent of a lot of things like you know, good father, you know, anything like that. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah. What made you come up with the name Syrup Sandwiches?
Initially, I had another name before that, but my 2 editors, who they're both great, they're out of Richmond, Virginia. They were reading one of my chapters, and one of my chapters said syrup sandwiches, and they said, you know, we think that you should name it that because it's catchy for one, and a lot of people can relate to it, right? Whether it was syrup sandwiches, mustard, mayonnaise, or whatever, it's sandwiches made out of condiments because you're financially not able to, you know, get real food like sandwiches, real with meat and everything.
Yeah.
But syrup sandwiches, I particularly enjoy syrup sandwiches amongst all the other condiments that I ate at sandwiches. So that's why I called it syrup sandwiches. But don't be fooled. The book is nothing about food.
Oh, it's okay. I used to eat potato sandwiches. Yeah. Fried
Scratch your head on that one.
fried potato sandwiches. So I knew there was something symbolic about that name. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your book?
My book, I talk about just dealing with domestic abuse, single parenting, fatherlessness, bullying, a little bit of discrimination, a lot of things that a lot of us grew up with, and somehow a lot of us got past it, but some people are still dealing with that right now, right? And so I wanted to write something that was relevant, something that people can relate to and say, you know what, either I've been through this, or I've gone through that, or I know someone who has gone through this, right? And so, but I want people to realize that no matter how difficult your situation is, you'll never know what you can accomplish if you give up, right? So I try to encourage people to, one, believe in yourself, and 2, do not give up, you know, because life is very difficult, right, and challenging, and sometimes it's unfair. But you just got to be able to roll with the punches and keep on going, and never give up.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So you write on the back of your book, you write Syrup Sandwiches as a powerful story about a boy who defeats the odds, rising above the expected outcome for a child raised in poverty. Is that you? Are you talking about you?
That was me. I'm talking about me. Yes, we didn't have a lot of food. My mother used to go to she was on welfare. She had the only employment at the time, you know, because, you know, she wound up going on welfare, right? And because she got hurt when she was working. So we didn't have a lot of things. My brother didn't have his father around, and I didn't have mine around either. And later on, my sister, her father, he was just a deadbeat, right? So it was tough for three children being raised by a single mother with very limited income. So it's definitely about me.
Mm-hmm. So 3 children you have. Are you what do you fall at in those 3?
I am the oldest.
Mm-hmm.
I am the oldest, and so I took on a lot of responsibilities because I wanted to make sure that I helped out my mother the best that I could, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was packing grocery bags at a grocery store at 8 years old when I should have been out playing and having a good time, but I had to do something to help my mother because we were struggling. So I couldn't just sit back and not do anything. So.
Right. And I was going to ask that when you said you were the oldest, I imagine that would put a lot of responsibility on you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Dr. Lowell, did you want to say anything?
Well, I was going to ask you, Anthony, you were probably in a community that what you were doing was more a norm than it was the exception for a lot of kids.
Right.
So did you
That is so
find
true.
did you find that a lot of the kids in the neighborhood were, I won't go as far as saying friends, but you could relate with each other?
Right.
Your
And
stories were similar.
right. And so we, even though we were poor as heck, right, we really didn't. I wouldn't say we didn't feel like it, but it didn't bother us so much because everybody else around us was like that too. So it was like the norm, like you said. So, but the reality
So
was we were
so
poor.
would you say that it's not easy to be envious of anybody when you don't know what to be envious of?
Exactly. Exactly. Right. No one had so much more than you that you became jealous and wanted to have everything they had. Right. So you didn't get jealous. You wasn't envious that someone else has had more. So
So part of the process for kids in particular, but into going into adulthood, to be resilient is to find those moments to smile. When you find the energy through that smile to take the next step and the next step after that. What were some of the things that helped you manage the obstacles and make you smile?
well, I'm glad you asked that question because I even wrote about it. And I said, um, I've come to the realization that during my fragile emotional state, that the things that helped me overcome the horrors were prayer, laughter, and the belief that I couldn't allow myself to succumb to the things that I couldn't control.
Was I chuckle because I'm thinking about it. I've seen kids do this. Was laughter contagious in the neighborhood?
I wouldn't say it was so much as contagious as it was a necessity.
Yeah, that's I
Because
kind of was
there was
using
so
that.
many times, yeah, it was a necessity.
We're on the same path because I know that the kids I've coached over the years that come from difficult scenarios in situations like you've experienced, when they're in a group and somebody tells a funny story or whatever, or even makes fun or sarcastic with each other, the laughter just tends to go for a long time because it's so infrequent that they hear it.
Well,
Yeah.
and you're right, but it's welcome too, right? Because
Yeah.
we need those things like that, right,
Yeah.
to get our minds off some things. But
Yeah, I was
yes,
gonna
go ahead, doctor.
for coping. I think that, growing up in marginalized communities, we become creative with different ways of coping, right? Like for instance, you go to school and you turn out to be the class clown. Maybe that's an outlet for you to
Right.
get out of certain situations that you're in. We're resourceful as children and we come up with different types of coping. And prayer was one for you. You talked about prayer like you. I too grew up in a family that prayed, and sometimes, growing up, I can imagine sometimes growing up, I did question my faith,
Mm.
right? Was there any time that you questioned your faith?
I did. I did. Quite a few times, right? Because my mother prayed so much, and she was a devout Christian. She loved the Lord, go to church all the time, and she prayed so much. And then there came a time when she needed some help from the church, and they basically said, "No, we're not going to help you." And then so many times, my mother's prayers seemed like they were not being answered, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I wondered if my prayers would not be answered as well. So, I mean, if my mother prayers are not answered, I'm a child now. Why would my prayers be answered, right? So there was times when I really did question it, and there's never any really great answers because a lot of times we have questions today as adults about when it comes down to receiving our prayers and different things, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you can imagine it would be a little bit more difficult for a child to try to understand some of those things.
Absolutely.
So Anthony, in your kids' books that you want to write, what are some of the things that you want to make sure they understand about
Okay.
being a child and helping their mom when their mom is not feeling good about their faith, or helping mom when there's money that needs to be brought into the family? What kind of lessons and messages will you send kids?
Well, like my first book right here, it's about this one is called Raw Power, and basically this book is about a child who gets bullied in school, right? And he tells his parents and tells his teacher, but it continues. He gets, he passes by this gym every day, and he one of us going to the gym. Basically, he goes to the gym. One of the guys there teaches him, and he becomes bigger and stronger, and he gains his self confidence, and he's not shy and quiet anymore. And then all the bullies became afraid of him, thinking that he was going to beat them up because now he's getting bigger and everything. But instead of beating them up, he told them, "Hey, look, you can go to the gym, and my friend who's at the gym will help you get bigger as well." So he showed compassion and he showed forgiveness, even though they were treating him wrong, right? So it's a story of being able to say, you know what, I believe in myself, I did something about it, and then I didn't go and get revenge, right? So So I want to do a series of books. This one is about bullying. The next one will be about single parenting, right? I think my
Mhm.
title might be like, "Where's My Daddy?" Right? Because I want kids to realize that because I went through that, right? I went through not having a father, and sometimes as a child, a child may blame themselves for the reason that their parent is not there, right? They may feel like they have something to do with it. They may feel, they feel sad at different times because they don't have both parents there, and so that could be a really difficult situation for a child to deal with sometimes, right? And so I want them to know that it's okay to be raised by a single parent, that
Yeah.
you won't be, you won't automatically be in a better situation because you have two parents. One parent can do a great job, and as long as they provide the love and care and things that you need, then you can be okay. So don't blame yourself and believe in yourself.
Anthony, where did you go when you were a kid when the world around you and the people in that world were just overwhelming you? Was there certain things or places you would find as solace for yourself as a kid?
Yes, work. I would go pack groceries. I would work at the summer jobs. I would do something to stay busy because it did two things for me. It took my mind off the things that I was going through, and it also helped to provide some form of finance for my mother, right? So that was my outlet.
So it sounds like fulfillment, whether it was work. I'm also wondering how kids find fulfillment. You found it through work and keeping your mind and body busy through those efforts. Are there any other lessons that you either learned yourself or saw other kids learn about how to fill that void when things aren't quite going the way you want them to?
I think for me, right, being around so many abusive men and men that didn't have any common sense, didn't show any compassion, didn't show any love or anything, any nurturing, just knowing that I did not want to be like them and seeing them around me, and they just basically reinforced in my mind over and over that this is not how I want to be, right? So that gave me my driving force to be better, to do better, to want better. So even though unbeknownst to them, they didn't realize that they were helping me become a better person because I was looking at all of the terrible things that they had going on in their lives, and I did not want it.
Did your military experience build on that a little bit?
It did because the military was the first father that I had. It was my father. It gave me structure. It gave me discipline. It gave me leadership. It gave me some things that I didn't have before and didn't know anything about. Right, so it was very needed and came at the right time.
Leslie, I think you started to ask a few questions a couple of times. What's on your
No,
mind?
I was actually going to say, these topics that he's talking about, that you're talking about, Anthony, are really great topics, and they're sensitive topics, and they're, potentially tough topics to talk about, such as bullying and, growing up in a single parent household. There's stigmas around growing up in a single parent household, right?
There is.
Especially, I think there's stigmas, especially for boys growing up in a household with a single mom, right? I was a single parent, and my son turned out just fine,
Right.
right? But there's stigmas around, we as mothers and our abilities to take care of sons without, but my son's father was in his life 100%. We just weren't, married. However, there are homes where boys grow up with the mothers when the fathers are absent, right? And then, there is, when I'm glad you talked about the responsibility and the stressors that come along with that. You said that you grew up in a home with your mom. Was your dad not
Right.
around?
Not around at all. I didn't find him until I became an adult, and I went looking for him.
So the stressors of growing up in a home with your mom, and then the stressors of trying to help her out while watching her stress as well, right?
Yeah.
To kind of ease the burden on her as well. How was that for you to meet your father as an adult male?
Um, So I found out that when my mother moved my brother and I from Georgia, that she didn't tell our fathers that she was moving to New York. She didn't say anything. She just took us and left. So in fairness to them, they never knew where we really were. But but granted, right? I wound up finding them. So that means that I went through the process of looking for them, which they probably could have. But I held on to that for a long time. And then I got to a point where I just said, you know what, I can't keep holding on to this. And I wanted to dislike him when I met him, but the inner me said no, because that's not the right thing to do. First of all, you need to hear his side of the story. Secondly, things happen, right? And so as it turned out, I got past that. I forgave him. I met all my brothers and sisters and all these other relatives on my other side. that I had never known, and it was just so overwhelming to finally meet all of them. And for years, wondering, okay, do I have a sister, a grandmother, and all these
Yeah.
other things. So.
Yeah, and so one thing I will say, and you brought up that word forgive. Forgive is such a hard thing sometimes to do, right? For some. Um, and when you talk about your story and you talk about, and guys, this is Let's Talk Men's Mental Health. So, I work a lot with men, I work a lot with trauma, and the goal of this Instagram live that we do on Mondays is to specifically talk about men and mental health, and promoting those discussions. And what you're doing, Anthony, I think, is that you're showing vulnerability so that people can feel safe, and you're giving other men permission to speak up about trauma and adverse experiences. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having
With
me.
that said, as a man, right, and to have to speak out loud and say, this is my life, this is what I've gone through. When did you get to that point to feel comfortable enough to speak up and say, hey, listen, this is my life, my life doesn't define me, these are experiences that I've gone through, and to kind of give yourself those positive affirmations and to talk positive words into yourself to help you to better love yourself and things of that sort?
I think I got that when I left my mother's house, because I didn't know anything growing up. I didn't have any real male role models that I could learn anything from, right? So a lot of stuff I learned on my own, right? And then as I got older, obviously I was around more people, and I saw how other people interact and how they did things, and I always wanted to do the right thing, right? So the definition to me of integrity is doing the right thing even when no one's looking, right? I've always believed in that, right? So that's how I've always operated. And I've never been hard on myself because I felt like all the stuff that I've been through, all it did was strengthen me and made me more resilient and made me more determined to do better. It was almost like a blessing in disguise, right? Because there was so much trauma involved in what I've been through. But at the same time, now I'm able to share all the things I've been through with other people, right? And help them go through, whatever they're going through if I can, right? I've been a big brother, big sister. I don't know if you guys heard that
Mm-hmm.
program. I've done that. Had a foster child, right? I give back to the community. I go to schools and I talk to young people and older people. So I feel like since I've been through so much, I want to give back and hopefully um, help some people that are going through what I've gone through, like didn't have a father, right?
Yeah.
Been through some trauma, didn't know how to deal with it, right? So just some of the things that I've gone through, I feel like it's a way of me giving back and helping.
Excellent. And I'm glad that you're talking about this because I worked in an inner city school, and I found that, when young kids, especially boys, came in, black boys came in, there were a lot of stigmas around that, even with the teachers, with the educators, right? And stigmatizing them and not understanding how to engage, them. So the stigma's gotten away, and which in turn got in the way of overall learning and success. Did you find that was the case, or do you find that that's the case, especially in the educational system?
I think that there's a lot of room for improvement, right? Because there is some stigma that still goes along, right? I mean, because like for instance, I have a YouTube, I mean not YouTube, but TikTok, and I have a panel just like you're doing right now, and I talk to them all the time about men being able to be vulnerable and show emotions, right? And cry if you have to cry, right? Don't always hold everything inside because when we were younger, we was always told, don't cry, toughen up, you could do it, right? But that's not a good thing because so long, so if you hold on to something so long, it's going to come out in some kind of way. It may manifest itself in your behavior, right? You may, start drinking, you may start committing crimes. There's so many different things that can happen as a result of you holding in so much pain and trauma and so much just chaos,
Right.
really.
Especially when you're talking about males, there's a lot of externalizing behaviors, such as anger related behaviors and things of that sort, not being able to control anger and things of that sort. So guys, we're talking to Anthony Owens, author of Syrup Sandwiches. His book is out in stores now. It's on Amazon, and it's also on Mental Health Talks website in the bookstore as well. Anthony Owens.
Anthony,
And you know what? That book has won an award. It's the category called BIPOC, right, which stands for Black, Indigenous, and/or People of Color. That book came in first place, and it's been out for 1 year now, and I'm really blessed and honored to be able to say that.
Amazing.
well, that's a good lead into my next question, Anthony, about men and your experiences in the military with perhaps seeing kind of socialized stereotypes, especially of men of color. That men of color in the military I've experienced that have a certain attitude that turns into a stereotype about their interactions with women, or their interactions with different social stigmas about things. Did you experience any of those kind of stereotypical patterns of behavior in men of color that you said, my gosh, why are you doing that? That's not who you are as a person. You're just following this stereotype. It's going to take you down the wrong path.
Well, I wouldn't say so much a stereotype as I would bad parenting, right? And what I mean by
Yep.
that, there was a lot of people that I was around, unfortunately, that were either didn't have a parent, both parents or a good parent, right, if you will, or they witnessed so much trauma and abuse of women, right, harassment and domestic abuse and all that, and so they too have doing the same thing that they saw, right, and so that was the only thing I saw, but nothing really like you could say as I'll just say mainly it was things like that, dealing with not having the right parenting.
So there wasn't good role modeling, is what you're saying, from a
Right, for a
young
lot
age.
of them, right,
Yeah.
right.
So when you kind of continue with that a little bit, there's lots of pressures in the neighborhoods for any number of things that kids can succumb to. What were some of the things that you did to move away from, fight against, maybe just leave? Was one of the solutions for avoiding any gang issues, substance abuse issues. In many regards, you dodged a bullet in many, maybe literally, but not everybody, not all the kids in the neighborhoods around the country have that fortunate outcome. What are some of the things you could recommend to parents and kids to help them avoid those pressures?
For the child, I would say develop or create or imagine, have a dream, have a goal, have a vision of something besides what you have now, right? Once you create a vision, once you create a goal, then you can have something to work towards, right? If you have nothing that you're looking to do, nothing that you're looking to accomplish, then a lot of times you probably will not accomplish anything.
Yeah.
So for the child, that's what I would say to them. And for the parent, be involved in your kid's life, right? Find out what they're doing, find out what's on their minds, talk to them, right? Communicate with them back and forth. And I said in my book, I understand that a single mother, a relationship between a mother and a son is vastly different than a mother and a daughter, because a lot of times a mother and daughter share a lot of intimate details because they're both female. Whereas the lady and the son may not share all those same kind of intimate details as they would, like a lady and a female and a daughter, right? So,
Yep.
right. And so in my case, that was part of the problem, because my mother didn't know how to raise two boys. She didn't have the experience, and she definitely didn't have the training to do it. So a lot of it was just, she was still growing up, and so were we.
You mentioned not boys and girls clubs, but you mentioned
Big
Brothers, Big
Sisters.
Sisters.
Yeah.
And then I've been part of the Boys and Girls Clubs organizations as a board member for years, and actually recruited from Boys and Girls Clubs in Chicago for my club basketball teams. Are those resources that you would recommend to moms and dads when they need help, especially single parents, to get some of that positive influence?
Yes, by all means, right? Because the people that are actually selected to go and be a mentor, they go through a strenuous process of, checking the backgrounds and all that stuff. So they're not going to just put anybody with their children, right? And so I think that in lieu of not having anyone, I think that's a good option for people, single parents, whether it's a man or a lady, right? Because, you have single men who are raising children just like you do women, right? And so I think that's a very good idea.
Did you feel that? Well, let me ask it this way: in current day scenarios, because you've gone to the military, great training and role modeling in the military. You went to school as a kid, I'm imagining, high school, grammar school, that kind of stuff, or hopefully you did. I know I didn't always pay attention like I should have.
Okay.
But what could the school systems do better at bootstrapping young kids, especially young male kids?
Well, that's an interesting question, right? Because back then schools were different than they are now. Now they talk about taking out certain things that that relates to us, right? So
Yep.
it's an uphill battle now all of a sudden, right? Back going to school back then, maybe it was bad, but it was nowhere near like it's getting now, right? They're getting to a point where they want to just take away our whole culture if they could, and that's not fair, right? So um, what they could do now is leave it alone, let it, matter of fact, encourage more, learn more about what happened, right? The things that we've been through, the slavery and all that stuff like that, nobody wants to keep talking about it, but at the same time, you're not going to just take it away and say it never happened, right? I mean, that's not how it works. So I think that they
Yeah,
need
and
to pay more attention to
as
that.
an educator myself, I've run up against administrators who, kids like to be hugged every once in a while, and they take that away from teachers, especially in middle school and elementary school. That hugging is not allowed because of the oversensitivity towards the negative side of contact. The other side of that is when they go on to high school and then college is getting employed is a reason to go to college, and the higher economic value to college. But we have a tendency to not tell parents and the kids that you're not going there to get a piece of paper. You're going there to get knowledge that you can apply, uniquely defining who you are and the best things about you. What were some of the influences on you, Anthony, that defined the best of who you are?
I think when I started actually getting higher education, when I started learning more, right, and also joining the military, right? Because when I joined the military, I was exposed to so many different people from so many different nationalities and walks of life. I learned so much from so many people that I'd never been around. That was eye opening for me. That to me that strengthened who I was or who I am as a person because I learned so much from so many other people than the people that I grew up around.
Yeah, and that's so. It sounds like support systems in the military,
Right.
help you out a lot, and being able to, be exposed, that exposure, external
Right.
exposure outside of when we. And you know what? It's funny you talk about that. So I'm a former VA psychologist. I worked a lot with the military, and a lot of veterans that I worked with, several, went into the military to escape adverse childhood experiences or to have a better life, right? Some, the military was rewarding. Others, the military was not a good experience, right? However, a lot of folks do go into the military to seek something outside of what they grew up with. And I will, jump in and say, school systems are a lot different from when we grew up, right? I think that when I was growing up, it was more hands-on, and you were able to, teachers were able to spank us when we were growing up, the discipline was different from when we were growing up in schools. It was more personable, where you could touch, like the hugging part and things of that sort. These days, you have to be careful about, touching kids and hugging kids and things of that sort, because, especially kids that, have trauma backgrounds, you have to be sensitive to that,
Oh yeah.
not knowing those backgrounds. You can't just, hug a kid. I remember I was working with a child, and his mom had died. Mother was ill, terminally ill, and died. And I did hug him, but I asked if I could give him a hug. And, I did hug him. But I do think that you have to be careful with, because of the, accusations of sexual abuse and things of that sort. So you really have to be careful about becoming, touchy-feely with children.
I would just wear bubble wrap and Mickey Mouse gloves. That was the way I handled it. It was really easy for me to stay away from that. And if it got too much, all that popping noise would happen. They knew I was coming.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't mean to make light of it, but you're right, Anthony. We have to make, as educators and as people with the empathetic behavior modality to help, we've got to do something to bridge the gap, because there's so much stimulus for kids that they don't have really a true understanding of how to manage it. So when you were managing young men and women in the military, what were some of the lessons that you wanted to make sure you shared with them about being healthy mentally so that they could be the best they could be with others?
I'm glad you asked that, because one of the main things that I always told everyone is that even though it's tough, right, don't allow whatever you're going through to beat you, right? Don't let it defeat you, and don't let it define you, right? Because right now this is just temporary. You're gonna get through it, just fight through it, and you can make it, right? So I try to convey to people to develop a level of the resiliency by allowing these different situations to not defeat them, but at the same time, allowing them to realize that all this is doing is preparing you for the next battle, right? It's making you stronger so that you went through this one, right? And it drug you through the mud, and it was really, really challenging, right? But at the same time, all that did was toughen you up for the next trauma that you're going to go through, because you will. That's how life is, right? So don't be defined or defeated by this one. Keep fighting and keep fighting, and then you're going to get to a point, hopefully, that you'll be able to say, you know what, nothing's going to stop me, nothing's going to bother me, nothing's going to bring me down to the point where I just can't function anymore.
Right. And that's not to say, things aren't going to get hard, because I think
Right.
that, and a
Exactly.
lot of times, and not minimizing what you're saying and what Dr. Whiteman is saying, but Mike Morgan just jumped on. I wanted to introduce him to you, Anthony.
Hello, Mr. Morgan.
But, it's hard. It's easier to say, don't give up and, keep trying and keep going. But when you're in that situation and you're dealing with what you're dealing with, whether it's trauma, traumatic events, or whatever have you, right? Your coping is around you at that moment, right? And something in you, and, I'm a product of adverse childhood experiences too. And, when we talk about those generational traumas and that cycle of abuse, right? Some of us go one way, like I chose to get an education. I chose to not be a product of, my environment that I was growing up in, right? But others sometimes don't have that opportunity for whatever reasons, right? And it's tough. It's tough to sometimes get out, or it's not tough, but you have been so much involved in these experiences that your mind tell you, I can't do better. And if you don't have anyone around you to say you can do better, Anthony, you on this video, and Dr. Lowe and myself can be on here saying you can do better, you can do better. But it's more impactful when you have somebody in your immediate environment telling you that you can do better. Someone that you love and care about, or someone that you respect, right? And it's really difficult when you don't have those persons in your immediate environment. Mike Morgan just jumped on. So he is the owner of A Few Good Mentors. Mike, if you want to jump up, you can. He also has a nonprofit that I think that he would be a good fit for, because he's always looking for mentors. It's similar to Big Brothers. However, it's called A Few Good Mentors. And, I just wanted him to jump on and tell you a little bit about that. But I think that you guys would make a good connection if you guys were to connect.
And you know what, to piggyback on what you were saying, those people that don't have those people around to do all those things that you're talking about, that's when people like myself and Mr. Morgan and other people come into play, right? It's not many of us, sure, it should be a lot more, but we try to do whatever we can to help people that we know need it, right? Because there are so many people that really need someone to talk to believe in them, right? Because a lot of times, even as adults, right, when people have problems, they don't always want someone to solve their problems. They just want someone to listen, right? And a lot of times people don't listen like they should, because they want to keep talking and giving their
Because we
advice
don't
and
know
opinion.
how. We don't know
Well,
how to listen. And it's scary
well,
to listen sometimes
right,
because we don't know how to respond, right?
right.
You don't listen because a lot of times when I first became a psychologist, it was so hard for me to sit in silence. I felt so uncomfortable if someone wasn't saying anything, I thought that I had to fill in the gaps, but I had to realize it was because of me, because Leslie felt uncomfortable, because I
That's why
felt
silent and listen is spelled the same. I mean, they have the same letters in it, right? There's a reason for that.
exactly.
That's
So
a
yeah.
very poignant observation, Anthony, because empathetic listening has a lot to do with not what you say as much as what you hear, and give the other person a chance to speak. So I try to talk about empathic listening as much as I can. And one of my mentors is Stephen Covey, and he would say, begin with the end in mind is one thing. And then the next thing he would say was, seek first to understand before you ask to be understood. That means you're truly listening to the person in front of you. But I want to come back to something you said earlier about the list of mentor-mentees, I think is what you were implying. There's a lot of people in our neighborhoods that we tend not to refer to because they're just commonplace. They're part of our community. There are coaches that are out there. There are faith givers that are out in the community that are not as formal as Boys and Girls Club or big brother, a big sister type groups. But if you connect all of them together, there's a lot of resources for both young men, young women, as well as the children. I guess I'm just trying to beat the drum about being louder and much more emphatic about where the resources are, that we can shed the light on these with kids and help kind of push, in some cases, literally push them into a place that is a positive for them.
Especially males, because males are the ones who tend to be silent, right? Males are the ones who tend to close everything up. We as females, women, girls, we have everyone to talk to. Research shows that we even go to therapy more, right? So with men, and young boys, it's like being, males, positive male figures in young boys' lives to let them know that it's okay to be expressive. It's okay to, and safe to speak about your emotions and your feelings. And then like you've been in the military, that silent rule in the military, don't talk about your emotions. If you talk about your emotions, how can you effectively do your job, right? Yeah. And then you come out of the military into the real world, and you're still trying to hold on to that mentality as I need to keep everything shut up inside of me. Really quickly, I just want to let Mike Morgan, so he is the owner of A Few Good Mentors, and he, also works to promote effective engagement with young men. Mike, can you tell just a little bit about your Few Good Mentors?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Well, okay, good. How you doing? How you doing? Thank you, Dr. Rogers. I'm sorry, excuse my appearance. I was exercising, you guys, and then I heard it, then I jumped on. But this is a very important topic that you're talking about, because we're trying to change that narrative, right? We're trying to get young men, starting at young men, but we go all the way up to age 21, of trying to get them to open up, tell how they feel, speak about it. And, what I've noticed is that I'm just not mentoring to the mentees. I have to also mentor to our mentors. Like, I have to get them comfortable to talk to these young men about their lives, their things that have happened, because none of us are perfect, right? And so we have to be comfortable enough to say, you know what, I made mistakes here, and here, but I can correct it. I've corrected some of those things. I'm telling you, like, it's life changing what we're doing. Next week, one of our mentees, I think I'll say his initials, RJ. When he came to us, his mom said, look, he doesn't like men. He's been let down. He's not going to talk to you. He's not going to shake your hand. He's not going to do this. Long list of things. Sure enough, when me and the Vice President, Greg Holmes, met him, he didn't want anything to do with us. It took, we're going on almost 4 years. Next week, RJ is getting an award from the state of Virginia for leadership. He's a totally different kid. And I'm not saying that it's just because of A Few Good Mentors, but mentoring cannot hurt you unless, and not us anyway,
Right.
Not us. I mean, this can only enhance your life. And it not only enhanced the young man, but Greg RJ's not part of his family. That's what we're talking about when we talk about community, when we're talking about men stepping up. Where are the men? I was reading a book that Martin Luther King wrote years ago called Where Do We Go From Here? It was right before he was assassinated. Where do we go from here? And that's the question I want to ask all the men out there. Where do we go from here? Because if you keep thinking, I'm just going to go to work, come home, and that's it, that's all I'm responsible for, you're wrong. It's the
So
entire community. You got to get off the couch, turn off the television. Let's get to work.
yeah.
We're past this baton,
Mm-hmm.
And you know what?
right?
I wholeheartedly agree with you because that's what I'm doing, and
Yeah.
I appreciate the job that you guys are doing on your end. What? Oh, she's showing my book. Right, this book right here is called
Okay.
Serve Sandwiches. It
I'm
won an
not,
award. It was nominated for another award. Right.
I
It's
like
about the
that.
struggles of
Yeah.
life. Right. It's about the struggles of life and not being defined or defeated by those struggles. Right. Like single parenting,
Right.
fatherlessness, discrimination, bullying, racism. None of that stuff. Right. It happens, but you can't let that define you or
That's right.
defeat you. Right. And
That's
so
right.
this is an open book. You know,
Uh,
literally about my life and all the crap and all the
Yeah.
trauma. But I'm still here, right?
Exactly.
I'm still here, and I believe that if you believe in yourself, you can still be here. You
Like
can
you can.
still be there, and you can accomplish
Yeah.
anything you want.
I would
Yeah.
love to connect with you
Oh
further.
yeah. What
And I
state are you in? Are
definitely,
you in Virginia?
I'm in Virginia, but we have chapters in Atlanta, Georgia. We hope to open one up in both Huntsville and Durham, North Carolina next year. So
Mr. Morgan, would you give us a website or whatever connection information you have? Just give it to us, and we'll put it up on the comment section.
yeah,
Or you can
thank
put it
you.
on the comment
Yeah.
section
Put
if
it
you
in the
like.
comment section.
Put it in the comment.
So this is a
You know,
Yeah.
great discussion because not only like all of you guys and some, Dr. Lowell works with athletes. And again, you know, um, kids that grow up and, go into athletes, sometimes athletics is an escape as well too, right?
yeah,
An
yeah.
escape. And, when we talk about, this subject and especially around young boys, then coaches such as Dr. Lowell and educators become support systems. We didn't see how much educators were support systems until COVID happened and all the kids started to struggle, right?
Yeah.
Kids started to struggle. They were support systems because school provided food for some of them. There was I think a documentary or something around that. Schools were providing food for kids. The teachers were support systems for kids. And then they go home and, there's no school anymore. A lot of kids were struggling. There was a lot of suicides during COVID. Did you guys know that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there
Hey,
was a lot of
Crazy.
suicides during COVID. So when we talk about this very, very important topic around men, all four of you guys, or well, all three of you guys are in a position of
Oh
helping
yes.
where you can
yeah.
help men.
And you know what? Real quick,
Hmm.
I went to school recently, and I was speaking to a bunch of fifth graders and sixth graders, right? And I didn't know this, but some of the kids that were in the school were actually homeless, and the teachers were telling me that they had to let them sleep sometime in class.
Mm.
That just melted my heart. It was so
Yeah.
unbelievable in this day and time that you have kids that are homeless in school,
Right.
and I couldn't wrap my brain around it. It bothered me for a minute, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
And, I
and
mean,
then
we're talking
add the
2023. Yeah.
add the food issues that nutrition and starvation in schools. Not just because they're homeless.
Mm.
You've got parents that they're not homeless, but they're paying money for rent, not food, because they're making a choice. The roof over my head is better than the food. We can get perhaps food from someplace else.
I know what that's
perish.
like.
We can go. It's a tough world we live in, and many times the messages about that toughness are not very clearly stated.
Yeah.
I want to ask you both a question about managing failure and sarcasm. Those are powers and forces in the neighborhood that many times kids just take it every day. They're taking some kind of disrespectful behavior from peers. As you know, kids of all ages, and I say kids, I mean, I got 35-year-olds that are kids. So they all are sarcastic and use failure as a way to get a bit of a lever with another competitor or a kid in their group. How do you guys manage that with kids when they're feeling those pressures? When the mentoring just isn't clicking with them, Yeah, you're here for me. I know that, but man, I'm still feeling really bad today because of what's been dumped on me. How do you get them out of that?
Would you like to go first, Morgan, or I'll go?
You go ahead and go first.
I deal with it by letting them know that, you know, you can't expect everything to be like you want it to be, right? And you got to come to the realization that things are not going to be as well as you like for it to be, or the way that it should be, right? Because people should have food, people should have clothing, right? But sometimes those things are not an eventuality, and so I want them to set realistic expectations, right? And realize that if things are happening to them that they can't deal with or that they don't like, for it not to let make them feel like they can't achieve more, right? Just because you're not getting what you want right now doesn't mean you can't get it, right? So just keep on fighting towards a goal, right? Like I said earlier, have some kind of goal, have some kind of vision, and believe it in yourself, and then you eventually you're gonna do it, but you gotta have something to believe in to keep doing it, right?
Yeah, and I definitely agree with you on that. The one of the things we talk about in a few good mentors is because health is one of our core values, both mental and physical health, is it really starts with you really loving yourself, and I don't think we do that enough because in order to reach out and understand and forgive and love somebody else, you're going to have that love for yourself, and you have to start seeing people like, and when I say see people, I mean like really, um, being angry, being mad when people call you names, and it's just not, you're not going to be able to fight the entire world. And that's what we've told our mentees. And really, that's what my father told me is that, um, hey, I was bullied as a kid
Mhm.
and I used to fight all the time. And one of the things he told me is that you're a good person. It was the best thing he ever told me is like, hey, you are a good person, Michael, but you're not going to be able to fight
Yeah.
everybody.
Well, Michael, let me bring you back to the reference you had to MLK a minute ago. There's a story he has in that book about being a street sweeper. And he talks about if you're going to be a street sweeper, be the best street sweeper you can be, because
right.
then you'll have the confidence in yourself to take on any objection
Yeah.
to who you are as a person, because you have the pride and the confidence in your work product as a street sweeper. Now, you may not be a street sweeper forever, but the foundation you create with that attitude of this is me, this is who I am, this is what I want for me right now, and then I'll take the next step and the next step. As Anthony, you've exemplified in your progress from where you came from in the neighborhood all the way through the Navy, and now you're a successful entrepreneur and author. And Mike, you're doing the same thing in Virginia. You mentioned Savannah, Mike, and I've got a contact. His name is Lindsey Streeter, Army Special Forces guy, retired, now working for financial services in Savannah. But he started a semi-pro men's basketball team called the Savannah Hurricanes. I would suggest, and I'll do it more formally with an introduction between you and Lindsey, that Lindsey and his group head up putting a few good mentors in Savannah. I think he's got the contacts for you. I think he'll be able to impactfully influence that with his players. His players are strong-minded young men of color that want to make a difference because they had a difference made for them. So that's their primary motivation. So I'll be more than happy to introduce you to Lindsey Streeter in Savannah, Georgia.
That would be great. And, sports are a natural fit for us because, most of the coaches, they're really, they're all mentors anyway. And so it's just a natural progression of, and I told you about RJ, where he's a standout youth football player, but it's sports that helped him, kind of stay focused, start thinking about other people rather than himself, and be building those team building skills that you need once you get older, you get into the workforce. So, so sports is big, and we're going to do more going into next year with working with more sports organizations, or I would like to. So yeah, I would love
Yeah, I'll
that
be
introduction for sure.
count on it this evening. I'll send it off to you.
Okay, that sounds good.
Um,
Sounds good.
Go ahead, Lindsay.
I was just gonna say, one thing I
Sorry.
want to say while we're winding down is, reflect and explore. I think it's really important to teach young men and for adults to learn how to reflect on how events have made you feel, how prior events or current events have made you feel, and explore those emotions, right? Don't be afraid to explore the emotions. Understand what those emotions mean. Understand the deeper context of emotions, such as bullying behavior. Somebody's calling you name. Why does that name hurt so much? Is it
Mm-hmm.
true? Right? For some, maybe the names that they're calling you. I remember when I was growing up, I was called amongst names. I smelled like firewood. When I would go to school, the kids would tease me because I smelled like firewood. Well, it was true because my father used to, in the house, our heat was a uh, fireplace, but it was one of those old fireplaces you put wood in and the smoke come out from the top.
Got it.
So I would go to school just smelling like fire, right? So and that was hurtful because it was the truth, right? So what I'm saying is we need to teach our children and adults. We need to learn how to think about why words are so hurtful to us, right? Put a meaning to it and then explore those emotions so that we can be better communicators to communicating with that person. What you just said to me was really hurtful. It was hurtful because it was insensitive as an adult. This isn't a child, right? It was hurtful because it was insensitive and because what you said was true, right? Or, being able to communicate. For children, what you said to me was mean. It was really mean. And I didn't like what you said to me. How would you like if I called you XYZ? Because a bully, trust me, they're going through something too. They're just using you as a punching bag to get away from what they're going through in the home as well, right?
Exactly.
So that's another story. So reflect and exploration. Also consistence. When Dr. Lowe, I think you asked earlier, what do you do to kind of modulate behaviors, right? You have to be consistent. You have to be consistent. It's just like even when you adopt a child, right? The child has behavioral problems. You send the child back every time they have a behavioral problem. They go from place to place to place, and keep sending them back, right? Mike, you said it took you 4 years to get through to this person, right? Consistency, being consistent and supportive, being supportive and letting that person know that you're supportive while at the same time establishing concrete boundaries.
Yeah.
While at the same time establishing concrete boundaries. Boundaries could be respect, could be a lot of different things, right? So this is an excellent conversation that you guys are having, and it's needed because we do need to have more education and awareness around this topic. I will say, and Dr. Lowe, no, we are working on, hopefully next year, well, not hopefully, we are going to do it next year, the Men Suffer Too retreat, where we're actually going to talk about self-care and mental health and medical health, and it's going to be in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee for men. Again, it's the Men Suffer Too retreat. It's going to be in a mansion in Pigeon Forge with a chef, Dr. Lowell Whiteman, and Wayne Lassane, and another Men Suffer Too spokesman is going to be in the mansion with the guys. But it's open to men. So if you guys know, stay in touch and updated with what we're doing. But we're doing a lot of great things. And again, teaching men self-care. We don't talk about it enough, right? Self-care. And self-care will teach you how to reflect and explore emotions, right? So that's what we need to talk about. So that's going to be coming out soon. So I just wanted to say that before we, wind down and end. Is there anything else, Anthony, that you'd like to say before we end?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you guys for having me up here. I really appreciate it. I always enjoy meeting people with like minds. It's always good. It's refreshing, right? To actually be amongst people that actually can, you can actually say, hey, you feel the same way I do. That's cool. You think like I do. So that's always a breath of fresh air. And so I'm looking forward to doing big things with each and every one of you guys.
Thank you. And I thank you for coming on because you've been so vulnerable and sharing your story and you're validating and you're giving, I'm telling you, you're giving other men that watch the show, you're giving them permission to speak up. And that's what this is all about. That's what Let's Talk Men's Mental Health is about, is validation and giving other men permission, saying, you have a right to tell your story. You have a right to speak up too. You don't have to silence yourself. You know, we're trying to drop those stigmas, those stigmas. Our childhood doesn't define who we are today. We create our stories. We write the stories and we write the ending according to how we want it, right? We just have to believe it. Mike Morgan, anything you want to say before we leave?
Really just thank you. You know, I was doing something else and I'm so glad that I jumped on. It's great to meet the entire panel. I cannot wait for the men's retreat. And if you need anything, Dr. Rogers, you know me, you got my number. Give me a call if you need somebody to speak at the conference, but I definitely will bring the guys over there for sure, Just let me know in advance. Got to get the book for sure. I think that book looks interesting, and I definitely
you won't be disappointed, brother.
Okay.
You really won't.
Mental health talk
Very
book
sweet.
for Mike Morgan.
Mental health book. Okay.
Yeah,
I'll get it.
mental
I'll
health
get
Won't
it
be
for sure.
disappointed.
For
And
sure.
for the
Dr.
kids,
Whiteman.
look, this is for the kids too. Right? It's about bullying.
Okay.
It's about bullying.
Oh, good. I was looking for something like that, so that's perfect. That's
Well,
perfect.
I'm starting another one. It'll be single parenting next. So I'm going to do a series of books.
And
Excellent.
that's really, really important.
And it's an Audible
Really important.
as well. It's an Audible too, in case people want to just be able to hear it. I just went to the recording studio today and finished this one up.
Oh, that's
This
great.
one is on audio book as well. So
That's great.
Yeah.
You might have to give me some pointers on writing a book. I have some ideas.
I have no problem with that. I help people all the time, right? But let me just tell you this before I leave, right? The first thing and most important thing that I tell everyone, right? Don't try to write a book. Just start putting things down, right? Everything that you want, every chance you get, keep putting stuff down, And then at some point you'll be able to move. That's what your editors come in, right? They help move things around and get it right. So just your main goal as a writer is to put it on paper.
Okay.
Thank you. Dr. Whiteman.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank both you gentlemen, Anthony and Michael, for participating today. It was a great discussion about very important things that young men, but also young women, with their realization of the needs that men have, can open the doors for men and give them the confidence to be vulnerable. Many times we're held back because that machismo genetic map we have is causing us to hold back. And all we need is just somebody to just say, it's okay, it's safe, it's a safe place with me here. So all that you do, make sure that safety and being vulnerable is a key component of your development. I'll quickly share a story with you about Irvin Magic Johnson that he has shared countless times, but it's relevant to what we've talked about giving young people opportunities to be present. He was given an opportunity to be present with his mom when she was a corporate janitor at night. That's the only time she could work, was at night, because she had other jobs. And so he'd go with her to help her out and empty garbage cans. Well, curious kid sees this big desk in this big office. He says, I'm going to sit in this chair and I'm going to swivel around. And eventually he found out that it was the CEO's chair. And one night he got caught by the CEO. And fortunately, it was by a benevolent man who saw that there was potential in this young person, who took initiative to live out a dream in his mind, in the chair, swirling around. And interestingly enough, that's the motivation that Irving Magic Johnson has for being an entrepreneur and the business owner and successful professional athlete that he was. And he shares that routine often with kids of the Boys and Girls Club. But it's one that if you ever get a chance to be with him in any kind of close quarters and have him share that story, he gets really animated. He's a wonderful storyteller. But I wanted to end that with you because you just hit a chord with me, guys, about being great mentors for young people without hesitation and without reservation. Thank you very much.
Excellent. You know, we should think about bringing this is Let's Talk Men's Mental Health, but me as being a sister and a daughter, and so much more. We should bring women on here for a show and have them talk about their experience.
Absolutely.
I would love that.
We need to talk about that.
Don't forget to invite me though, okay? Don't forget me. Do me a favor.
You're already friends with me on here, so every Monday we're on here. Next Monday we're on here with a senator-elect We're not going to say the name right now,
Okay.
but
Oh, okay.
he's going to be on next Monday, talking about mental health, and he's in a upcoming election, and he's going to be on next week at 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So make sure you guys let everyone know, and show up to support
That'll
him.
be 4 o'clock Vegas time. Okay.
Mhm.
I'll be in Vegas. So listen, can you give Mr. Morgan my number, please?
Yeah,
Please reach out to me.
I'll get you guys in touch with each other.
Yes. Yep.
Okay,
That sounds
Have a
I'm
great
awesome.
in
evening,
Virginia too.
everybody. Be
Thank
safe.
You guys take care.
okay. All right. Thanks
Thank
again. All right.
thank you, doctor.
Right.